This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by Matchroom's Frank Smith here in Saudi Arabia. Frank, you can't get rid of me. I'm everywhere where you are. But how is life? How are you doing?
Good, mate. Good. Good to be here in Riyadh. What a way to end the year. Massive show to end the year. We've had a tremendous run, but what a fight card to end with.
Massive fight card to end with, and let's obviously touch on some of your guys. Anthony Joshua returns. Tough fight with Otto Wallin as it's drawn ever closer. What's been your thoughts, and why do you feel like AJ's taken this risk of an Otto Wallin fight when there's all the talk about what could be coming up next year?
I think because he knows his ability, he knows what he can do. You know, he's looked tremendous from what I hear in camp, and he's been on it, and he knows he can go in there and do a job, and I think you're going to see a tremendous performance from him. I think the momentum of his career recently has helped keep him busy, keeping in the gym, something he hasn't had for a long time. I think that knockout in the last fight is a big plus side as well, and you know, it's first time in a while he's had that kind of finish. I think that's going to be big for him, but like, I think Otto Wallin's a tough test, but AJ's never shied away from taking tough tests. He's always done it throughout his career.
If he is to come through unscathed and have his hand raised, just from a confidence point of view, how much will he take away from the fact that he'd have beaten a tough, durable southpaw as well on the back of the fights with Alexander Usyk?
Yeah, but look, I think people talk about the Usyk fights. You're talking about Usyk, pound for pound, probably top 2, 3 in the world, you've got to say. You know, he's a tremendous fighter. I'm not saying Otto Wallin isn't, but he's not on that same level. And AJ didn't get outclassed in those fights, you know, and so, you know, I think people comparing it to that, it's easy to compare it to the other southpaw, but I think you're going to see a tremendous performance come Saturday.
One talking point from yesterday was obviously Anthony Joshua during his media rounds. Seemed to be a little bit of a frosty reception he gave back. What did you make of the way that he went about conducting his media duties? He's
ready to fight. He's focused on fighting, the niceties and that side of things. He's just focused on getting in the ring and having a tear up, and that's good to see.
Obviously, we've seen somewhat of an evolvement of his style as his career has progressed, and in the more recent years, he hasn't been as maybe aggressive as what he was when he was probably arguably up to the Ruiz fight. Do you think that, especially on the back of how he was yesterday, we might see him revert to type a little bit, revert back to that?
Yeah, but look, I think the key thing is he's focused on fighting. He's getting in that mode, that mood, and you know, that in his head is where he's at. He doesn't want to be standing doing hours and hours and hours of talking. He has to, obviously, that's part of the job. But I think he's the time for talking's done. And he just wants to get in there and have a tear up.
I know you don't want to look beyond Saturday, and I'll ask you on Saturday night after the show's finished as well. But the Deontay Wilder fight, how far along is that?
So definitely a fight. Look, we've been speaking about it for years, haven't we? Like, it's always been around other fights. Like Deontay Wilder fight, is it next? Is it next? Is it next? The focus is Saturday night. Like you say, he's got a tough test against Otto Wallin. We all want to make the biggest fights. We've done so much talking about the Deontay Wilder fight. We felt we were close to making it previously. We didn't get it made. So hopefully we can get it done. But very much the focus December 23, and then we go from there. But we all know it's a huge fight, and it's what AJ wants. He wants the biggest fights.
Just something to throw at you. So I was able to have a bit of a Deontay's time earlier, and we spoke about that fight. He said that if he had to put his last dollar on it, he's confident the fight does happen next year. But he raised concerns from his perspective over AJ's mental state and why when he mentions, well, sorry, when people mention Deontay's name to him, he doesn't seem to be as receptive about a fight taking place. Just your thoughts on that, and also AJ mentioning maybe going down the title route as opposed to a Deontay fight.
Look, I think people have for years have questioned AJ. You know, every movement, everything he's done, he's always had it, and Deontay obviously no difference with that. I think you've seen a big change in Deontay Wilder's persona over the last few years, especially. So, you know, everyone judges each other's, you know, personality and whether they want to do things, but he's focused, as I say, on Saturday night, and we look from there, you know. But he's wanted this fight for a long time, and I believe, like I say, I believe the fight will happen.
Just moving away from that one, obviously you've got Dimitri Bivol as well. Comfortable favourite going into the fight with Lyndon Arthur. That's no disrespect to Lyndon Arthur, but what challenges does Lyndon Arthur pose to Dimitri? Look,
I think Lyndon's obviously had he showed a lot of heart, especially in his last fight. I think Dimitri Bivol, as we've seen, you know, with his win over Canelo, he arguably in that top pound for pound list, like he's a brilliant fighter. And I think, you know, Lyndon hasn't been in with anyone at the level of Dimitri Bivol, but I really get on with Lyndon Arthur. I think he'll go in there and give it everything. But I just think Dimitri Bivol's a step above everyone in that division. And but we're in for a great fight. I think it'll be a good fight. But I do believe Dimitri Bivol's on another level.
I'm sure if we was to ask Dimitri Bivol, he'd call you his promoter, not Eddie, because you seem to be more of a favourite of his. Just want to get an update on kind of that Canelo rematch, the clause around it. When did that, or if it has timed out, or is that still kind of something which can be revisited but is still open? Like, what's the lay of the land?
I think the fight's there if it makes sense for everyone. Dimitri will fight anyone. You know, he's not shying away from any challenge. He'd fight Canelo tomorrow, so you know, maybe that fight's there. I think Canelo's maybe looking at a Charlo fight next, but who knows? In time, maybe that's a fight. You know, Dimitri's spoken about possibly doing it at 168 as well. But let's see how it plays out.
Dimitri also told me that he has got a 2-fight deal out here in Saudi Arabia, and he's hopeful, and he seems to be that the Saudis are hopeful that the winner of Beterbiev-Smith will step into an undisputed bout out here. Is that kind of aligned with your understanding?
Yeah, look, I believe, again, he wants the biggest fights possible. He wants that Beterbiev-Smith winner, which is obviously Jan 13th, so that'll be the focus. But again, he's got a big fight Saturday, he won't look past it.
And of course, Frank, you have Mr. Opetaia, the man who many see as the #1 in the division, with or without that IBF strap. How do you believe Jai's handled this entire build around the IBF situation?
Look, he's done the right thing for his career and his life. You know, boxing's a hard sport, and you have to make decisions. You know, especially financial, and the best decisions for yourself. Like you say, he's the #1 cruiserweight there is out there. He's the Ring Magazine champion. He's had some brilliant performance, like that last fight against Jordan Thompson, unbelievable performance after so long out the ring as well. And I think he had to make a decision that was for the best of his career, and he's done that. And you have to respect that. You know, fighters and fights can be bigger than the belts. We've seen that on many occasions this year. And you know, like I say, I'm happy he's made that call. You know, so many fighters would be led by a belt, but he's made the right call for himself for the long term.
Frank, you mentioned again it's a 2-fight deal for him out here in Saudi Arabia. So what is the plan for him beyond? Again, he comes through Saturday unscathed. That is, what is the plan for him moving forward?
He wants the big fights. He wants the big fights. So we'll see what plays out after this. There's lots of options out there, but again, haven't looked too much into the future right now because December 23rd is the focus. He's obviously had a lot going on with the IBF situation, so it's been very much focused on that. And then we, like I say again, we move on to that in due course.
Frank, it was 48, it was 72, it was 53, it was all sorts of hours. Obviously we had that news that Eubank Jr-Benn will not be proceeding come February 3rd. Just an understanding from your perspective as to why that ended up falling through.
Well, it comes down to money. Like most things in life, it's always money. I'm confident it will happen in the future. There's still work to be done in the future, but it's a shame. I'm happy because we did everything we could. It's not, you know, if we hadn't done what we'd done, and I thought there's more we could have done, I would be upset or angry or whatever. But I think we did everything. We took a big risk on the plans and the proposals we were putting together, and it is what it is. Now we have to focus on getting Conor Benn another fight Feb 3rd, and that's what we're doing now.
Before we do come on to kind of just sticking with the fight and falling through, how far off do you feel you were in terms of the finances to please Eubank and to get him over the line?
Again, I won't go into it. It just comes down to numbers. I mean, I'm not going to say what it was off, but it wasn't there. So it doesn't really matter what it was off. Whether it was 1%, like I say, we did everything within our power to make it happen. And you know, we have to move on.
So we know that you've just mentioned there February 3rd. You have every intention to move ahead with that date. What opponent is in the frame there, though?
We're working through opponents now at 147. You know, and trying to get the right opponent for him, you know, and keep him active, keep that momentum going. But we're working on 147 opponents now, hopefully news in the coming days.
Is the plan still to be for him to box over in the UK, or are you going to be looking elsewhere now?
I think internationally for this one, and then get back in the UK in due course for a mega fight.
So I imagine that aligns with obviously his ongoing case with the board. Have you had any further conversations with them, or is it still very much so wait till next year now?
Still waiting until next year, so we'll see how that plays out.
Frank, listen, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. Thanks for speaking to me, and enjoy Saturday night.
Cheers, Ben.